What's going on, everyone? Zane here with Everything Vive. Happy Monday. Welcome to a brand new week. I am here with Ronnie. Ronnie, how's it going, man?
It's going great. It's it was a long day, but I'm looking forward to the week, and there's some good stuff going on. So
There is. Well, I think we have one main focus for this week, and at least for our news episode, and that's the long-awaited release of Oculus Touch. It will be coming out tomorrow, Tuesday, December 6th. So if you're listening to this podcast at some point in the future, then you'll know the date. But Ronnie, what are your thoughts, man?
yeah, I mean, I'm super excited about it. I mean, we've been talking to a lot of developers that also seem to be excited about the opportunity to kind of branch out and have some new VR owners added to their titles with cross-platform multiplayer support and the like. I think it's going to be exciting just to see more and more people with VR headsets be able to play some of the more active type of titles, and having the Oculus folks be able to partake in some of that, I think will increase the number of titles that have good support for motion controllers. Because right now, if you're making a game that is exclusive to motion controller support, you basically had to only focus your development on the Vive. And while that's a good thing, there were still a lot of titles that were on Steam that kind of had, motion controllers kind of, just patched in, and the games were made from the ground up to support both headsets. So they couldn't really double down on being sure that people were going to have motion controllers. So, I mean, I think that this gives potential for hopefully most developers to kind of steer away from those titles that would use controllers and keyboards and such when it's not appropriate to do so that, all games supporting VR on the PC from this point forward are going to be only motion, tracking controlled games. At least that's kind of what I'm hoping for. So I don't know. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. I'm excited for it because, I would assume that the majority of the people listening here are Vive owners. And, I'm wondering how this would affect us as Vive owners. And I think the biggest asset, the biggest benefit would be just the increased user base. I know we were talking with Nick from the Rec Room development team last week, and how he mentioned the cross-platform was coming. It will start tomorrow, so I'm actually really excited to jump into Rec Room tomorrow once all these people get their. Are they going to receive it tomorrow? I just know December 6th was the date.
But, I'm not 100% sure on that. I kind of assume that they'd be shipping maybe tomorrow.
Oh,
so maybe
okay. Yeah, well then
that's just my guess. I didn't actually I technically have an Oculus Rift kind of sitting in a box in my apartment, but I didn't pre-order I didn't pre-order the Touch, so I'm kind of regretting not pre-ordering an Oculus Touch if I do end up keeping my Oculus Rift, because I recently heard, and I'll have to check in further to confirm, but it sounds like if you didn't pre-order the Oculus Touch, the Oculus Touch I think comes with 4 games packaged in, and 2 of those are Oculus published titles. There's a sports package, and then there's another one, and the sports one in particular looked really cool. But both of those titles will sell for $30 a piece separately, and if you didn't pre-order it, those won't come with the Touch going forward. So I kind of
okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of a bummer, because if I do end up deciding to get the Touch, then I'm going to miss out. And I know at least one of them looks like something I'd really be interested in playing, but it's, $30. So not saying it wouldn't be worth it, but, if there's anyone out there that, in the next few hours hasn't pre-ordered Touch yet and they're thinking about it because they have Rifts, you might want to go and look into that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we should definitely look into getting the Touch controller so we can do a side-by-side comparison. I know
Yeah,
that there's already so many articles. You're gonna have your Team Vive versus Team Oculus out there, and I don't want to get wrapped up in that just because I mean it's never gonna be productive. I think it's all gonna be a preferential thing.
yeah,
I am very happy with HTC Vive. I'm very happy with what Valve and HTC are doing and how they're moving forward with it. So
yep.
at the end of the day, like I am Team Vive, but I do want to see VR succeed, I guess, on all fronts. And just going back to what we were talking about earlier, how this affects us as Vive owners and as Vive users. All these multiplayer, the social aspect of gaming will really benefit from having just a huge expanded player base. And like I said, I was really excited for Rec Room. I guess not tomorrow, but whenever touch players do start jumping online, because I know it's available tomorrow. After talking with Nick, they're going to have it as one of the titles that's available with launch. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think this is a really exciting time. Whether you have the Vive or you're getting the Touch, whatever it is, like I think we're gonna see a lot of these cross-platform games, and especially like the multiplayer ones. I mean, they're all
Hmm.
gonna be multiplayer, but these cross-platform games that will really help to drive VR forward.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, both platforms, the Rift and the Vive, are have pretty relatively small user bases compared to consoles and compared to other electronic devices out there at this point. So, I mean, it really will help to unify those player bases a little bit. And like I said, I do look forward to developers being able to kind of count on more people out there having motion based controllers. Period, because I mean, while I don't necessarily think that developers will be able to count on Oculus players having room scale setups necessarily after the Touch comes out. I mean, clearly the Oculus can support room scale if you have it set up properly. If you have, I mean, and I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit, but if you have it helps to have three sensors, but you can even, ostensibly do it to some degree with two in a smaller space. So, I mean, while that's possible, I just don't think that the majority of Oculus users are going to necessarily have their setups, configured for room scale gaming. So I still think that
I don't know. I
that
kind of disagree with you on that. I mean, okay, this is a very niche a very niche like market, a very niche area of interest for people. So if somebody's already spent the money on a gaming computer, if they've already spent the money on a Rift and the Touch, I feel like people would get that last sensor for what is an extra
yeah.
$80 to $100 after tax. I don't know. For me, I just feel like most people are going to want that room scale experience, especially if they've tried the Vive and can see what it does. You
Yeah,
think the opposite?
I mean, I wouldn't say I think it's a possibility, and of course, there's going to be some users out there. Like, if I were to pull out my Oculus uh, and try to set it up, I would want to try to set it up for room scale because I'm obviously used to the Vive and I know what room scale is capable of. It really just depends on how many people are out there that already have their Oculus set up in a certain way because that's the way they're able to do it. For people that don't have a lot of space and that's the reason why they have an Oculus, or have their sensor sitting on their desk and really don't plan on trying to go from that type of a setup to finding a way to kind of mount it or suspend it on high points on the ceiling and whatnot. I mean, it's those kind of people that I think would have went for the Rift because it was simpler and it was more easy to set up, that I think won't even really know to try to experiment with a room scale type of setup. Like, I think depending on how much Oculus really pushes it, which I don't necessarily think. I mean, they're not all of the language I've seen from them isn't kind of an official support of room scale. It's kind of more, hey, these are experimental ways you can set up
Yeah,
the sensors to enable, and the
that's the
fact that
keyword, experimental.
exactly, the fact that they're stating it that way, it kind of makes me just feel like they're doing their best to appease to those people that know about the Vive and are kind of knocking on the Rift a bit for not having room scale set up. But at the same time, I really don't think that they care that much about it or are really going to kind of push their users to really, do anything major with it. Like I think their titles are going to primarily assume that people have their sensors set up, both two sensors in front of them, and they're going to be, mostly there just to track the controllers and the player in 180 degrees of movement, and that's kind of it, I think. And I think there's obviously titles that support both, and it'll be great to see if there are going to be but just the way they gear, it seems like they try to streamline, their experiences a little bit more than on the Vive, and so I can't really see, as an Oculus owner, someone purchasing a title that in like a little star says something like, make sure you have room scale set up, and hey, these are the ways that you need to configure. Like, I think for most players, they're just going to have the default way you should have your sensors set up is this way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, so, I mean, but that said, Oculus players are free to go on Steam and buy software that way too. And obviously the Steam store, promotes room scale and promotes, and the Steam VR API kind of, helps you set up room scale systems and all of that. And I do know, I shouldn't say that Oculus is completely ignoring room scale either, because it does sound like they're implementing some type of a chaperone system. It's not the same.
It's called Guardian, I think, right?
There you go. So yeah, so they wouldn't have done that if they weren't trying to at least do something on that front. So I'll be interested to see. I think probably the reality is going to be somewhere between your optimism and my pessimism, I guess, on the issue. And hopefully people will start gravitating towards it more and more.
Yeah, well, let's actually talk some numbers real quick when we are referring to room scale, because there were a couple of things that popped up, and I know, like I said, people are going to go back and forth about the comparisons between them. The first one that I just wanted to touch on and get your thoughts on were the room scale size. And so, this was taken from, I believe, a Road to VR article that was uploaded earlier. And the numbers that they were giving after going through the manuals for both, it looks like the maximum ideal size for the Vive is 11.5 feet per side and a little about over 133 square feet of play space. While the Touch is 10.5 feet per side, which comes out to about 100 square feet. So just simplifying that down, you have an extra 30 to 33, I guess, extra square feet to be able to play in. How much of a difference do you think that makes?
Yeah, I mean, if that's really how it breaks down, just a 33% difference, I kind of doubt it's going to make much of a difference. Are those numbers for on the Oculus side? Is that with 2 sensors or 3 sensors?
That's with 3 sensors.
Okay.
I believe with 2 sensors, it's much smaller.
I
think with 2 sensors, you're really just looking at a standing experience only, because the way that they have you set it up is the 2 sensors are in front of you. So if you turn around and you block either the controllers from the sensors seeing them directly, they won't track properly. So you really need to have that third sensor.
Is there any way that you can? Because and we'll have to look into this more if the Upload to VR article doesn't mention it specifically. But does it mention what the space would be if you had the two cameras on the Oculus setup similar to a Vive setup?
No, they were going off the official documentation, because I know people had been experimenting with that and testing it out. But they were just going off the official. They were just going off the official ideal specifications. Okay. But I mean, at the end of the day, every article I came across was talking about how Valve or the Vive's tracking system ultimately is superior to it, just in how it works and how it functions, and overall functionality of it.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious how much of a roadblock that'll be, because I think what Oculus did really well was get a lot of those. Well, one, they've done fantastic marketing. I was in a T-Mobile store today, and I saw like one of those like gigantic video screens just showing off the Oculus Touch. It was like a big commercial for it, And I've never seen any type of promotion for the Vive except now whenever I'm on Google and they have their targeted advertising trying to sell me a Vive after I've already bought one. So,
I get those too.
so but like I haven't seen any type of like mass marketing for the Vive, and so I guess I'm just curious where people are at, like the general consumer who's like somewhat interested in VR, what their perspective is, just because I feel like, a couple months ago when I came over to your place, I had no idea that the Vive existed. I heard about the Oculus and
Yeah.
that was kind of the extent of it. And now with like PlayStation VR coming out and, it taking up a good piece of the market share and getting some notoriety out for what it can do, obviously not at the same level as the Vive or the Rift. But, it's just, I don't know. I'm just curious, like where are people at that are looking into this stuff? And, is that extra $80 for quote unquote room scale, experimental room scale going to be a sticking point? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, my gut feeling just tells me that most people, the only people that will get a third sensor are people that are Oculus owners exclusively right now already, that know about the Vive and have been kind of jealous of its room scale capabilities and want to try that kind of stuff. And I use the word jealous kind of, teasingly. But like
Yeah.
if I were an Oculus owner, and I'm an enthusiast, I read up on all this stuff.
Well,
If
you
I
are
had,
an Oculus owner.
but exactly. But let's say I was only an Oculus owner and and I had kind of, been divided on which system to get originally. And I decided to go with Oculus because of, I don't know, maybe the extra third party support from Oculus Home or the Oculus Store. And, I heard that the headset was more ergonomic, something like that. And I ended up going with the Oculus on those grounds. But, I was kind of divided because I had heard, all of these cool things about these motion controllers that, that the HTC Vive had, and the fact that they could, they allowed you to walk around in your room rather than just be, complacent, like stay in one stationary in one place. Well, it's those kind of people that see the benefits of room scale, that know about the Vive and wish their Oculus could do the same kinds of things, that I think would be most likely to go out there and purchase a third camera. I think for the people that either just, for those people that like have Oculuses that are not in touch with the hardware, side of the industry enough to really know much about the Vive, those people will just see touch as, oh wow, a cool new, peripheral for my Oculus. They're not really going to be trying to really compare it to the Vive as much, and they're not going to really be thinking that they need to go out of their way to buy something that, they don't already have, unless there's something that, comes with the touch or something to that effect that really clearly states that, hey, this is what you have if you want to do this other thing. And it explains to you what room scale is. I just don't see those people even really knowing that they're going to get much of an advantage from buying a third sensor.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of that's just my gut feeling, is people that already know people. And you were right to point out that all of this is a niche market at this point. So there's a decent percentage probably of those Oculus owners that are geared in enough to know what they're missing out with the room scale stuff. And I think it's those people. So depending on how many people are like that have been dying and itching to play room scale stuff through Steam, if that percentage is high, then yeah, there might be a lot of people that go out and put down the extra. Because I don't think it's the money that's the issue so much. I think it's just, do people really know about, do Oculus owners know what, getting a third sensor is going to provide to them? And if they do know that, do they, then are they worried enough about those type of experiences to actually go out and try that versus, doing some weird setup with two cameras if that's viable at all. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of, and if you have a really small environment, then probably the answer is no. Probably they work with the two camera sensors and have a really small, find a way to put them in corners or something to make it an okay experience for room scale and leave it at that. Or they have a really big space and, they fall within that category where they know about the Vive and they know about all these people having fun with room scale and they can't wait to join and they get the third sensor. Like there is going to be some of those type of people out there. But yeah, it'll be interesting just to see, how much, like part of me almost thinks that the room scale side of this stuff might start taking a backseat to the touch controllers.
Oh,
And the
that's
reason
actually a really scary thought.
yeah, and not so much that like, I don't think that it'll necessarily go away per se, because I mean, you can still, like, it seems like in some of the titles that I've played that don't even truly support room scale, but you know, they support both the Oculus and the HTC Vive, and they incorporate certain features from the Vive, that the Oculus couldn't support. Like some of those seem to have room scale added in, and it seems to work okay. But yeah, I'm just wondering if now that, like, I mean, the one thing that you're not going to really, I mean, the Oculus user base is going to be splintered now, at least on two fronts: people that have Rifts but don't have touch controllers, and people that have Rifts with touch controllers. So that's at least one division there, and hopefully there won't be that many people without the. But I
And
mean,
you're gonna have the tiny portion of people who have the third sensor.
yeah, so you're going to have three categories. You're going to have these people that only have the Rift. You're going to have people with the Rift and the touch controllers, and then you're going to have people with the Rift, the touch controllers, and a third sensor for room scale that way. So like it's splintered. So, and then you have HTC Vive owners that they don't have touch controllers, but they do have motion controllers. They're slightly different, and they have room scale. And so I think, it seems like the common denominator there is going to be headsets with motion trackers. And so I wonder how many developers now are going to try to kind of broaden, hopefully you get rid of people focusing on the controller experiences that the Oculus Rifts were kind of introducing into the Steam marketplace. Because there were people out there, I mean, I can't imagine it as a Vive owner, but there's people out there that can only play VR games, with their headset sitting with a controller in their hands.
You're talking about like a gamepad or something, right?
Yeah, a gamepad. That's what I mean. So I mean, there were people out there, and there were developers that had to keep those people in mind if they wanted Oculus Rift users to be able to play their games when they were designing. So just imagine having to find a way. Like, I mean, we mostly play Vive only games because they were always fully functioned like that.
Yep.
But I mean, I can only imagine if you're a developer wanting to support, both platforms prior to the touch. I mean, how you were really able to find a way. I mean, in most instances, probably you really had to sacrifice, some of your vision in the game if you wanted it to be able to work on both. But so luckily, hopefully going forward, you don't really have to worry about that as much, because now you can kind of, hope that most Oculus users are at least going to have motion controllers. But then, like I said, but now that you do have a decent, like, let's say in a few months from now, surveys go out and a decent portion of those Oculus Rift owners do have touch. Now you're in a position where if you really want to focus overly on room scale, you're potentially kind of screwing with your game's compatibility for a lot of those Rift owners that don't have room scale setups configured. And so I wonder if then the issue is, well, I can support, if I focus less on the room scale side of things and just focus on, on the motion controllers, then you can kind of bring in both the Vive owners and all of these Oculus Touch people.
Yeah.
And if
Just going back to what you were saying a little bit earlier, like the scary thing about it though is I just don't want developers who are either jumping in the game now or, with Oculus Touch being more so, I feel like geared towards like standing experiences rather than room scale. I hope people don't
Yeah.
scale back the room scale stuff. So if there are any
Yeah.
developers listening, please don't. Like, I think that's what really adds to the immersion and experience in there. And I just really hope that, like, the games coming out now will not only be standing only games, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, and maybe, I mean, maybe a lot of this is just over, you know, like maybe a lot of that kind of fear or those issues really wouldn't be a factor. I mean, there's a lot of games I can think of that I would consider room scale type experiences, like Rec Room, for example, that, you can walk around perfectly fine. But then they actually added stuff in to let Oculus users be able to to rotate if they're not going to be moving in their environment as much. Or likewise, I mean, a lot of the game, also allows for teleportation. So how much, is room scale really diminished by those types of systems? I mean, raw
Yeah.
data is another one. When you're playing raw data, it is a room scale game. There's certain parts of the game that clearly feel like they're designed for a space in mind, like a game space, like a play area, kind of like, the starting out area where you're in the circle and you have to, load up the level and everything. I
Yeah.
mean, that feels like a space that you're definitely supposed to walk around in. But then there's a lot of other, like when you're actually playing the shooting, when you're actually in the gameplay itself, I mean, part of it you walk around in, but a lot of it you're also teleporting back and forth. And teleportation doesn't really require you to walk around in a physical space as much. And so I'm just wondering if, like a game like that, I would think would work pretty easily with an Oculus Touch system, because as long as you weren't walking around in the space too much and just using teleportation, I mean, if you watch someone play that game in a Vive, I would be surprised. I mean, there's a lot of situations where people aren't really walking around in the space as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. I agree with
So
you.
so so I'm just wondering. So it's just going to be interesting. Like I said, like it'd be interesting, like in some of our upcoming interviews with developers that have games that might potentially work for both, to kind of talk about that issue a little bit. It might just be something that's not even a factor, because people can walk around if they want in the game if they have room scale, or they can use a lot of the other mobility functions in the games, like
Hmm.
teleportation and all that kind of stuff, more if they want to as well. Like I wonder if it's going to be a kind of pick your own poison kind of thing. Like, how do you want to move around in the environment? If you have a room scale setup, yeah, you can walk around to some extent. If you don't, you can teleport or use some other function. Like, I'm just wondering if that's going to be kind of, and that those kind of solutions like don't necessarily take away from room scale, experiences as much. Like, I wouldn't consider a game like Raw Data to be, or Rec Room to be, sacrificing any kind of room scale experience on their end. At the same time, like a game like Unseen Diplomacy that is very much
Ooh, yeah.
designed around your play space, that won't work. I mean, that'll only work
That'll only
for
work
a
with
room
a
scale.
good size room scale too, because I know
Yeah,
they have limits on there, or at least minimum required space on there.
yeah. See, so I mean, the fact that Unseen Diplomacy has those requirements, but a lot of other games don't, kind of makes me think that the ones that don't really wouldn't be impacted that much, anyways. But who
True,
knows?
true.
Like, but we'll have to see. Like, it's something interesting to think about, and it's definitely something that you and I can talk to people about when we're interviewing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're just kind of at the dawn of where Oculus Touch, how that will really impact everything. So I
Yeah,
think all of it is kind of speculation right now. We'll see where the chips fall as the games start coming out, as the experiences start coming out, and then I guess that will probably help determine where these companies go moving forward. I know Valve obviously is already working on their next controllers, their next gen, but we'll see what type of impact this has in terms of development for both of those platforms, as well as Microsoft coming out with their stuff next year, and I'm
yeah.
sure Sony is working on something, just because I feel like they have to be improving. Otherwise, they're going to fall short once all these other headsets start popping up on the market. So
Yeah, no, their tracking technology and the PlayStation Move controllers are just kind of a little subpar from everyone's experiences that I've heard. So, I mean, it'd be nice for them to get working on something. But
yeah, for sure.
but no, at any rate, yeah, it's an exciting thing to kind of talk about and think about and discuss, and yeah, coming tomorrow, it's all going to be a reality, I guess, to some extent. So.
Yeah, and I mean we'll follow this obviously as it goes along. And Ronnie, you and I should definitely connect on trying to see what we can do to get our hands on some touch controllers to work with your Rift. I know you haven't taken that out in a while, just because Vive has been fulfilling your VR void in your life. So, but we should definitely see if we can offer at least our own perspective to listeners.
Yeah, no, I agree. We'll look into that for sure.
Cool, man. Well, you got anything else? I know news this week was a little sparse, and I did want to focus primarily on Oculus Touch coming out. So,
yeah, no, not really anything in particular. Just looking forward to hopefully having some more free time this week to try out a lot of the new titles that are out there, and again, as usual, I mean, Thanksgiving weekend was kind of whet my appetite a bit, but I'm really looking forward to the winter Steam sale to pick up a lot more stuff in the next 2-3 weeks or so.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see.
I'm excited for it. I mean, there's already a lot of stuff that I got that I'm just kind of chewing on right now. So we'll see, man. Lots of stuff, and it's I mean, one of the best parts of VR, especially like in this stage right now and in the position that we're in, and all Vive owners are in, is being able to show it off to other people who have no idea or have never experienced VR. So being able to get a lot of these games on sale or even not on sale, just all the games, all the experiences that are coming out, being able to grab those and then kind of have round twos with all of your friends in terms of them coming over and trying stuff is a lot of fun. So we'll follow the Steam sale or winter/holiday sale. I think it's still a couple weeks away, but once we get any more details, we'll definitely fill you guys in. So,
yep.
Anything else, Ronnie?
Nope, that's it.
All right, man. We'll cut this episode here. We had about a 30-minute episode on just Oculus Touch, but it's VR, and it's definitely going to impact the VR industry. So we are excited to see where it goes. And yeah, for everyone listening, thank you guys for tuning in. We really, really do appreciate it. If you guys wouldn't mind leaving a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or leave us a comment on YouTube. We're actually trying to grow that channel out. That's one of the best ways to just start the conversation with us. Obviously, you guys can shoot us an email, but we've been really active with people on YouTube and the gameplay videos we have up there. So with that being said, have a great rest of your week. We will have another interview coming up for you guys on Wednesday, followed by a game talk this Friday with some of the games that we've played and some of the games that we got on or over the Black Friday weekend. So, Ronnie, have a good one, man. We will.
Yeah, you too.
Yep, we'll talk with you guys all later.